Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Dr. Jason Henderson, your host today. Scott is away on vacation with his wife and his little girl, and so I'm solo in it today. Hopefully you will enjoy this episode. I'm excited to have our guest today. I've heard him speak a number of times and just very impressed with who he is and how he approaches things. Our guest today is Michael Armijo. I hope I pronounced that right. Sometimes he goes by Michael Law. We'll find out what that is in a minute. Anyway,
Yes.
he is a multifaceted professional serving as an entrepreneur, habit coach, talk show host, mentor, and business consultant. He is renowned for his expertise in high performance habits, and that's what we're going to talk a lot about, and his entrepreneurial success. Michael's journey into personal development began at age 17 when he was inspired by his experience growing up in poverty with his mother and three brothers. This challenging upbringing sparked his curiosity about the differences in people's success. I am so happy to welcome you today, Michael. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. And, I know Scott's not joining us today, but, it's always a pleasure to be welcomed to the show for sure.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit, Michael. Tell us a little bit more about your background. Now, I know you, I believe you grew up in Arizona, correct?
So I will touch on that. I was actually born in the Four Corners, and I was never raised in the Four Corners. Um, I was born there. A lot of my family from there dispersed on my mom's side of the family up into Colorado, and a little bit into Texas and a little bit into New Mexico and bounced over to California. I'm actually the only person in my family that lives in Arizona. Um, so the way that worked, coming in and growing up is I did grow up in poverty. I grew up with limited opportunities. Um, I would say the number one thing growing up is within my environment, in the community, hardship was the thing, right? Hardship was the environment. I always share my story of when I was growing up, the first 10 years, I never really was solidly living with my mom. I was bouncing around from almost anywhere where we could find a place to live, whether it was, with grandparents or a friend or just anyone that had a spare bedroom growing up. So that lasted all the way up till I was 10. And when I was growing up, I grew up with parents that were, substance abuse was heavy. Violence in the community was just absolutely, outrageous. And, I grew up with friends not making it even to graduation. And so going through that, adversity is always present. You're always having to go through adversity. Now, about 10, when I was 10 years old, I remember my mom making a phone call to my grandpa, and that's who I was living with at the time. And she was going to church, and she ended up getting, on her feet, getting an apartment. And the apartment wasn't the best apartment, but it worked out well. It was my three brothers and I, three brothers and I, there's four of us, and my mom. And this is a 2-bedroom apartment, one bathroom. So all of us were crammed into one area and on a poverty side of town. Now, this was actually in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So if any of you guys are familiar with that, the whole city is poverty. There's not a nice area of town. There's not like here in Arizona. There's not a Scottsdale and then the West Valley. Nope, it's all literally, just a environment you really don't want your kids to grow up in. So, growing up there, living with her, I remember this is the longest place I've ever lived. So growing up, I moved constantly. But with my mom, this apartment wasn't the best apartment. If it rained a little too hard, the roof might cave in, whether it was the kitchen or whether it was the bedroom. And, every time you open up the kitchen cupboards for some snacks, it was, you were welcomed by a bunch of cockroaches. Now, growing up, I really didn't, that's not something as a kid I really cared about. And I don't think a lot of us in the neighborhood really cared about it. If I went to a friend's house, it was same scenario, right? And but something interesting happened is as you get older, one thing I realized growing up is I've never seen anybody in my life work harder than my mom. 3 jobs, to put the roof she did over our heads, to put the food she did on the table. Always got new clothes for us. And the most important thing I think she did was put us in sports. So she kept us in sports to stay out of trouble. And I feel like a lot of those sports, those disciplines, is what carries into my entrepreneurship journey. I always tell people if you're a successful entrepreneur and you have a background of sports or military, it doesn't surprise me that you're a successful entrepreneur because those traits carry in. And so,
What sports? Tell me, what sports were your favorites?
yeah, basketball was my number one all year round sport. I did try everything. I did a season of football. I did a season of golf. Golf is now one of my favorite hobbies. Um, and did track. I actually had to quit track and field because I actually tore one of my meniscus, almost both of my meniscus doing field, throwing discus, and it was a dumb thing to do, especially when you're in sports. I think one recommendation I could give to people is like, man, just pick one. Definitely try to keep yourself active all year round, but you didn't want to burden yourself in the basketball season because you're over here trying to play football, and so that was definitely one of them.
I just want to know, keep going with what you were saying. So your mom had you in sports to keep you out of trouble.
Yeah. Now, one of the side hobbies, I got my first car, getting going into high school, got my first car, and it led me to this passion of street racing and a passion to build cars. And car parts are very expensive. What got me into it was I had a Malibu. That was my first car, little sedan. But I was driving around town and this guy ran a stop sign and hit my car. And with the insurance, I was able to get a new car. And so I was like, okay, and we went and I got a 350Z. So I thought I had the coolest car in town. Definitely, hands down, it was the coolest car in town when you're talking about the environment I grew up in. And so I was like, wow, cool. Got this manual, it's a manual car. So got to work the clutch, had to learn to drive, gears, shift from first gear to sixth gear, stuff like that. And I, wanted to build this car, but couldn't go ask my mom for money. So I started doing some side hustles, and I've always hustled my whole life growing up, but specifically I got serious about it because car parts are expensive. So I started a landscaping business, and I had about 30 houses, worked under a guy that had the 30 houses already. So he already had the 30 houses. It was his business. I came in and I said, hey, I'll take over all your properties, and as long as you pay me for each one. And I was making $300 a house per day, pretty much. So I was trying to knock out as much houses as I could, buy car parts, and I was both doing legal racing on the track and street racing. And the reason why that's important to this story is because one day a buddy of mine had called and he said, Michael, there's this car show next week. And I'm going to all the car shows. He goes, you want to go with me? I was like, yeah, sure. I'll just meet you there. Let me know where it's at. He said, oh, it's at the track. I was like, all right, cool. Well, I'll be there. And I go, and this car show is called Gold Rush Rally. And for those of you who don't know what Gold Rush Rally is it's a car show tour that wealthy people, they get together with their $100,000 Ferraris and Porsches and Lamborghinis all the way up to, $1 million Bugattis. And they drive from New York, they drive south, and then they drive all the way west to LA. It's about a 4-week show. And as they're driving down, they stop in each town and do a car show. So I thought that was pretty unique. But there's 4 things I realized at that car show. One, I've never seen these cars in my life. When you grow up in poverty, I didn't have TV, couldn't afford TV, so I didn't even watch TV to know that these cars existed. I didn't, have Wi-Fi. Say that again.
So I want to put a fine point here. You're saying you didn't even know what a Ferrari was.
I didn't know what a Ferrari was. I didn't know
or a
what a
Lambo or anything like that. Okay, keep going. Cool.
yeah.
Keep going.
Being in the car industry, I thought I had the coolest car, so I stopped there. I did not know beyond 30K cars existed, and I bought my car, 5K cash. Like I bought it used. Insurance gave me 5K. That was about it, and I used it for that car. So the most money I've ever seen get made in the household was probably like 30,000, maybe 40,000 in a year. So like to even think that a car could cost more than that was never in my area to look into. And didn't have internet, didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have cell phones. I remember the whole house was sharing the BlackBerry keypad phone. And if I wanted to be on the internet, I would have to, walk myself to the library and go hop on their computer, the public library. So I didn't know these cars existed. So my mind, my paradigm in that car show shifted completely. It gave me hope for sure. I realized every single car was 6, even 7 figures. I realized that the car owners didn't just drive alone, they brought their families. So I thought that was very unique. I didn't grow up with a family, we were all dispersed. My oldest brother moved out when he was in 6th grade. Like he moved out and he's been living with a friend his whole entire life to go pursue sports. So we kind of raised ourselves. We didn't really do things together. And in that part, the third thing I realized was they all looked at ease. They didn't look distressed. That and of course they're a little bit wealthier. Some of them they're so of course you should be at ease. And the fourth thing I realized is this is a 4-week tour. So I'm like, what job in my head? I'm like, what job is paying you this much money and gives you 4 weeks off to go do this? And that's I got curious at that point. So I started going asking all these car owners. I was like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? I never got the word entrepreneur. So I didn't know entrepreneurship was still a word until I was like 17. This was about 15 years old. And I got business owner. I'm a business owner, investor. And then I got like high income careers like doctor and lawyer and things like that. Those are the answers I got. So I heard this word business owner. And at this point growing up, I didn't know businesses had business owners. I thought they just ran. I thought it was just an economy that just kind of like operated. I didn't know that someone actually owned the business, the barbershop. I didn't know someone owned the grocery stores. I didn't know there was owners. I just thought they ran. And from there, I decided to go back, and I've had my answer, right? Everyone's asking around 15 years of age, what are you going to do with your life? When high school ends, you're going to go graduate. What's next? And at that point, up until that point, I didn't know what was next. But for damn sure after that, I was like, I'm graduating. The next year I graduated, I left, I moved here to Arizona. And with one thing in mind, I said, the only thing I know is working hard from my mom. So I was like, I'm going to outwork all my competitors, and I'm going to prove that something is wrong here in this system. I'm going to prove that you could work hard, because it didn't make sense to me that my mom could work hard, but yet collections is calling, that we're still behind on bills. Like it just absolutely made no sense. And these people over here are on a 4-week tour having fun. And that's what started my entrepreneurship journey from that point.
Wow. So when you say you got curious, you got curious and you were asking them, okay, I'm a business owner, this and that. You had to have gone further and starting to understand what it's going to take, right? Because when you got to Arizona and you say, okay, I'm going to outwork people. However, when did the concept come in doing the right work better than anybody else,
Yeah.
right? Because we can work 24/7 and be in poverty. We can. We just would, if we're not working the right type of work and we're not doing it the right way, it's just not going to work. I mean, when did that concept start coming towards you?
Yeah, it definitely came later. I would say about 2 to 3 years into my entrepreneurship. Um, One, I can explain. I've probably been an entrepreneur my whole life, explaining all the side hustles I did. But one thing is, when I was about 15, 16 years old, I had a bunch of people that I met through social media. Now social media is a thing. I got maybe my first phone, iPhone like 4, whenever that came out. Now I finally got my first phone. one of the phone services, Cricket, had like an affordable phone plan for like the whole family. They just dropped, and so we're like, boom, got our very first phone. And at that same time, Xfinity came out with a low income plan for the family. So like, boom, so I got hit with a cell phone and Wi-Fi at the same time. And I started hopping on Facebook, and so from there, I was always involved too, and like always had fun going to like music concerts, underground music concerts, not like the big huge ones, but like the ones where 20, 50 fans would go to and support artists coming through on tour. And I would go to those, and I ended up managing social media for a few of the artists that were in town and out of town passing through on tour every year. And so I was like, all right, cool. I was charging them like $150. I was like, I'll manage your whole social media. Then I realized they're hustling, they're trying to make it too, so they couldn't pay me. And when I moved to Arizona, I was still doing that, and I started picking up music artists here in Arizona, and they couldn't pay me. It was $150, but they're still trying to sell merchandise and do their thing, pay for their tour bus, pay for their gas. And I was like, all right. I call myself a coffee shop entrepreneur, right? So I bring my laptop and I like to go out and work at coffee shops with Wi-Fi. And so again, growing up in poverty, I didn't think go pay for my own Wi-Fi. I was like, well, let me be resourceful, go use a coffee shop's Wi-Fi. And this brand new coffee shop, Fillmore Coffee Co. in Phoenix, opened up. So it was cool. It was downtown Phoenix, and I went there and I started, working from their coffee shop. And the owner is opening it up every morning. And so it's small, it's local, and he sees me for a whole month straight. Finally, he approaches me and he asked, what are you doing? Like, you're not a student, because ASU downtown school is right there too, and he has a lot of students come in. But he goes, I know you're not a student. Like, you're not doing student stuff. What are you doing? I was like, oh, well, I
And
manage.
he's really saying, why are you here all the time using my Wi-Fi?
Yeah, yep. And you're not a student, so because I think he had student plans and everything there, makes sense. And I told him, I was like, well, I'm just, I manage social media. So, I come in, get my coffee, my muffin, and hang out for an hour or two. And he goes, oh, that's cool. He goes, well, how much do you charge? And off the top of my head, I was like more angry, like not angry, but I was like overwhelmed that I was doing all this work for like 7 people and I wasn't getting paid $150 a month from all of them. So a number I threw it out there, and I was like, well, it's $2,500 a month, and then we go from there. He's like, okay. He goes, well, we're looking for somebody. He goes, I manage it personally. He goes, could I work with you for 3 months and then we'll go from there? So I was like, sure. Jumped right into that.
He took you up on your offer in a heartbeat.
Quick. Yep. Quick and easy. He kept me for 9 months, and that was the start of me realizing B2B is the way to go. So I went B2B. I dropped all my clients that couldn't pay me, and I started going out there and getting business owners as clients. So that was my first real.
How were you doing that? Going to get more business? Were you knocking doors? I mean, you going business to business? I mean, the old
Yeah,
fashioned, I mean, hard work. I mean, tell a little about that.
it was a little bit of both. I would go knock on small businesses around town every day, and then I would also DM them every day too. So it's like little touch points, right? I would DM them, then I would maybe call them, and then maybe I would go knock on their door and say, hey, I DM'd you guys. I didn't know who's running the account, and so it was a little bit of everything for sure. All small businesses until one day something cool super happened, which kind of changed a lot of my entrepreneurship journey, which was one day the CEO of Ashley Home Store was on Instagram Live with another influencer and business influencer, and they were on IG Live, and this influencer is telling him like, you need a this time Instagram shop and Facebook shop are brand new. He goes, man, you guys just need to hire a freaking 17-year-old kid that could manage all your guys' social media platform and not worry about it and blah, blah, blah. And while it's live, I'm calling corporate, Ashley Home Furniture, calling corporate. And they're live, and I'm saying, hey, I'll do all this for you guys, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't up my price. It was like $2,500 a month. No, $1 billion company. And they're like, still, let's do this. And I had migrated all of their furniture into Instagram Shop, when that shop feature came out, and that was cool. That was one of my biggest clients. So to get past that, I end up searching in Arizona local entrepreneurs to network with, right? So I'm looking up hashtags and meetups to meet with entrepreneurs, and I actually see this flyer get posted. 30 flyers get posted in the same day. It's a Tuesday night, and this flyer says, "Pack the pen." Learn to build financial freedom with entrepreneurs. And it's on a Thursday night. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna go to that on Thursday. And I end up going to that event, and that's where I meet Blake. It's Blake's living in a penthouse in downtown Phoenix, and he's doing network marketing. And
So I'm going to interject here real quick. Everyone,
yep,
he's referring to Blake Hahn, and Blake has been a guest on the podcast before. So I'd encourage you to go listen to that episode in the event you haven't. And while I have your attention, listening to this cool story, you need to, subscribe and also give us a 5-star review. It's always helpful for the podcast. So, all right, back to you.
no, definitely. So I end up meeting Blake, and I sign up for this network marketing thing on the spot. I didn't really care what it was. I wasn't a person that dove into, what network marketing really was. I just knew whatever they did, it worked. I got interested. I was 17 at the time, so I couldn't sign up legally for the company. So I called my mom and I signed her up, and I connected the bank account to my bank account, and I was building the business that way. When I turned 18, I signed myself up under my mom, and then I kept on building. So that was where we did, and our organization. We went back and we looked at our organization. We had a $1.7 million organization in like probably 9 months. And the income that Blake and I earned, we took that, and Blake went and bought a gym. The gym wasn't doing very well, so he bought it at a discount, and we wanted to turn the gym around. So we're sitting down in his house, and we're like, what can we do? So we start a supplement company to sell supplements out of the gym. And then with that, you're in a gym business. So we're like, well, let's start a fitness line too. Started a fitness line. And in network marketing, we ended up recruiting about 6,000 people in 6 months, very, very fast momentum. And we always had tailored suits on. And so everyone kept asking us where we were getting tailored suits from. So we're like, let's start a tailored suit line. And so we just starting businesses. Somewhere lost in the mix, we hear entrepreneurs or millionaires have 7 streams of income. I want to say, don't take that exactly how it's meant right away. We thought that, and so all the money we had, we invested it into starting 7, 8, 9. We ended up starting 12 companies in a matter of 7 years, and we were spreading our time and our money way, way too thin. While the rest of our organization was spending their money on wants, right? Chains and loafers and jackets and cars and apartments, and it created a big disconnect, and that organization ended up crumbling. When it started to crumble, because we weren't taught leadership, we weren't taught financial literacy, we weren't taught residual income, we weren't taught any of this stuff. So when it crumbled, Blake and I stepped away, and we said, well, we got these businesses that we need to focus on anyway. Let's go do this. That's when, to answer your question, that's when my doing it the right way started to change. I came across a video of Bob Proctor on YouTube. And Bob Proctor, for some reason, is a character that I was very drawn to his teachings and his material. And I started just binging Bob Proctor for years, ever since that day. And Bob had said that he built a $200 million a year consulting business. And he said, my mentor, Earl Nightingale, and I stopped everything I was doing. I was like, if Bob did this, who's Earl? Because Earl's obviously his mentor. So I went up and looked up Earl Nightingale. And Earl is known for starting the personal development industry. And at least he's the one that people give credit to for starting this whole industry. And he said, Earl has an audio called The Magic Word. It's a 14-minute audio on YouTube. If you guys are listening to this right now, write that down and go watch it on YouTube. And I was called to kind of make this a part of my morning routine. 14 minutes, I was like, sure, I'll hit play every morning and I'll just go about my morning. And I did that every morning for 4 years without missing a day. It just became a part of my habitual behavior to hit play. And when I was doing that, my subconscious was being rewired, but I wasn't actually understanding the material completely. I wasn't studying it, I was just listening to it. And Earl said something about 3 minutes in. He asked a question. He says, why is it that some people live so well in life while many more do not? And I was like, wow. I paused for a moment because I was like, Earl, Earl articulated the question I intuitively felt at 15. And because of that, that's what I knew I was pursuing when I moved to Arizona. I said, I'm trying to figure this out. Why are these people living well? Why is my mom working hard and not living well? I knew what I was trying to solve. I didn't have a specific response when people were saying like, what are you doing? Why are you doing entrepreneurship for? Like, that's why I wanted to solve that problem. And so while building these businesses, I had an investor about this time, 2018. Blake and I both lost everything. We're business partners together. So like when he lost everything, I lost everything simultaneously. And I had one option that I share with everybody is being young. I said, well, if I absolutely lost everything, my mom would be happy for me to move back in, or be more than happy to allow me to move back in, I should say. And so I did. It didn't last long. I went for maybe 2 months. I packed up, U-hauled everything over there, and stayed with her for 2 months. And I went back to what I knew best, my marketing agency. And I found an investor that would invest into my agency and in another business that I caught interest in, which was the processing industry. And he said, yeah, I'll invest, but you have to live in Miami, where he lived. He goes, he wanted to oversee the business close. So I was like, bet. Within 2 weeks, I had my flights booked in a bedroom that I was going to pay rent in, and I moved out to Miami 2 weeks later, and I spent 2 years there. In 2018, from that time, you got to think about it. From when I share we're starting 12 companies, we recruited 6,000 people. Well, everyone's watching us on social media. Social media has it's called the highlight reel, right? Everyone always says social media is the highlight reel. And that's very, very true. Not a lot of entrepreneurs want to document the struggles. So when something great happens, you post about it. And from the outside looking in, you got to think about it. We have a new logo and a new brand popping up almost every 3 months. And so from the outside in, it's like Blake and Michael are popping. Things are going very, very well. And they were, all those businesses made money. But we fell for another mistake, which was reinvest all your money back into the business until the business makes profit. And if you're familiar with the profit first system, that's the system, one of the systems I learned. And that system, how basic it is, actually changed my financial life, because now we take profit first, we pay taxes, we pay ourselves first, and the remaining goes into the business. And now I do that. Now I help entrepreneurs do that specifically, because for 7 years we had businesses that were making money, but we had nothing to show for it. We were maybe paying our rent, maybe paying for food, but that was about it. The rest was going all back in. We had nothing to show for it for 7 years. And in Miami, if you guys know Arizona, or if you guys are in the Midwest, a lot of people have razors out here and dirt bikes. Razors and dirt bikes. That's the thing out here is everyone has a razor, which is a 2-seater or 4-seater, I don't know what you would say, dune buggy, whatever it is, to go hit the mountains in the desert. And in Miami, everyone has a yacht or a boat, just like in Arizona, everyone has a razor. So when all my friends are inviting me on a boat every single day, it also looks like Michael made it, because I'm on a yacht every single day. When I'm not, I'm just on a boat every day because my friend has one. Everyone so happens to have one. You're surrounded by the ocean. And from the inside out, though, it was very, very stressful. It was very overwhelming. I never fell to depression, but it got very, very tough for sure. There was definitely some times where you're like, man, like, I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore, and I'm just going to stop and go get a job. And the reason why that's important is because leading towards, Blake had called me in 2018, December 2018, and everyone kept asking us, why is it that we're so confident? we are consistent. How can we invest 50K into a business, a few years later, shut it down, invest into another business, a few years later, shut it down? Like, how can we just keep doing that? And so Blake called me and he said, we need to write down everything that you're doing and everything that I'm doing on a daily basis at the peak of all of our successes. We started jotting down everything that we could do. I'm gonna show you something cool. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I'm gonna show you guys something unique. Watch, give me 1 second. Alrighty, thank you for that pause. This book right here is the first book we made. So we wrote down everything and we said, okay, we're going to turn this, everything that you do and everything I do on a daily basis, we're going to organize it into a planner and we're going to put it together. And so about that time, I spent about 6 months, again, coffee shopping it up, designing this book. And we got it ready to go. July, we start, taking pre-orders. And by the time August comes around 2019, my lease ends. Blake found this office that I'm sitting in right now. He says, hey, I got an office. You want to move back to Arizona, renovate it, and start running the business from here? I said, sure. Packed up from Miami, flew back to Arizona. And Garrett, who you've met, he's a business partner of ours. He owns a UPS franchise. He printed all the paper for us for free. He gave us the cutter to cut the paper in half for free. He gave us the hole punch to punch the holes in the planner for free. And he gave us the springs for free. And I sat and I put together 500 of these by hand in my warehouse. And that was the start of this, like identifying it. And so we started going back to the people in network marketing and giving them this book. We're saying, here's the answer that you've been asking us, use it. And this is what will help you.
As you can tell, Michael's story and journey is phenomenal. We're going to cut it off here and turn this into 2 episodes. I do not want to cut him short. He needs the time to continue his story and tell us all about it. I'm learning a lot, and I hope you are. Take the time right now to like and give us a 5-star review and even subscribe to this podcast. Catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.